Assault and battery. Hosted by Mel and Kelly.
No laughing during the theme song, James.
I'm not trying to.
Forget what you know. Assault and battery.
You are an ill-behaved guest. Welcome, everybody, to Assault and Battery, episode number 4, Hero. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And with me always is Mel.
Hey everybody, I'm Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and we have a guest, as you've probably noticed.
Snorting through the theme song.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Young Jeans on Twitter from bringoutyourgeek.com.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure.
I'm like crazy excited. So, I guess we can find out as we cover it, but I can't contain myself. I really, really liked this episode a lot. There were several moments in it that I truly, truly enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. And for the folks out on Twitter, and possibly in the Hangout Q&A, I'm sure on Twitter do hashtag Talk Saul. We'll be watching Twitter for that. Sadly, a couple of our what have become regulars, Mike, Official Pagan, is still under generator power and limiting access in the evening because he wants light and heat, so I guess we're going to have to give him a pass for another week. And then Jay also has been joining us more often, and he is traveling for business and apparently in a facility that does not have AMC. So I don't think he was able to watch the show, so I don't know if he'll be joining us. So the rest of you folks need to pick up the slack. We're supposed to just pretend Mike is sending us funny links like he usually does. So.
Okay.
And with that, we'll just go ahead and turn it over to Mel to get us started with the cold open.
All right, so this was probably my favorite part of the entire episode. At first, we're not quite sure who we're dealing with. I thought we were dealing with Slippin' Jimmy, but we see him and a new friend walking down a dark street, and Jimmy appears to be teaching this guy named Steve how to howl like a wolf, because the ladies love it, but not in their ears. Don't do it directly in their ears, because they don't like that. So, eventually, as they're staggering down the street, the guy goes, "Hey, I didn't catch your name." And he goes, "Saul Goodman." You know, like, it's all good, man. So, this, we find out, is an alter ego of Jimmy's way back when he was Slippin' Jimmy. So, all the bars are closed, all the liquor stores are closed, and they're taking a shortcut to someplace that Jimmy knows. And they come.
Jimmy is sporting quite the shirt.
It is, yes. It looked like something from the 70s, but I didn't figure it could be. So it's just very poor taste, I think.
And a luxurious mullet as well.
Yeah, the mullet. The mullet's bad. So as they're cutting through an alley, they come across a wallet just laying there. So Steve picks it up, and hey, there's money in it. And there's a driver's license of a very large man. And then they spy some feet sticking out on the other side of the dumpster, and then they go, hey, it's probably him. They go over there, and Jimmy pokes him to see if he's dead, and he's not dead. And he starts mumbling drunkenly at them about buttholes.
Quite a bit.
Which was very interesting. I felt he was a little too clear to be as inebriated as a pretty much passed out in an alley sort of guy would be, but he proceeds to berate them quite viciously and pops out my favorite line of the episode, where he's explaining to them how he's going to go buy the McDonald's that they work at. And then he says he's going to walk in And he's going to say, drop your mops, buttholes, because you're fired. And that was my favorite quote of the episode because, hey,
There were many good butthole quotes in the cold open.
that was really a very great monologue that he had going on.
And
So,
Jeans, did you catch what his primary mechanism of doling out punishment was to these guys if he was going to...
Roundhouse kicks?
Yeah. How likely did you find that?
Very, very unlikely given his girth.
yes.
I mean, he could. I just don't know how long he'd stand during the process.
One good one's all it takes. He mentioned Van Damme. He's got to get points for that, too. So it turns out, after all of this, he passes out again. Jimmy goes and he says he's taking the watch because Steve says he's keeping the money out of the wallet. So Jimmy pulls the watch off of his wrist, and the other guy, well, he wants to know what it is. Turns out it's a Rolex. So the other guy wants the watch now, and he'll give Jimmy the wallet. And to sweeten the deal, because the watch, a Rolex, should be worth a lot more than is in the wallet, he even gives Jimmy all of his money because he's going to hit it big selling this watch. Well, as we have expected by this point, this is all a big scam. Slippin' Jimmy's at it again. The big guy who likes to do roundhouse kicks and call people buttholes is Jimmy's friend. And so it was all a scam. It wasn't really a Rolex, and they just made, I forget how much money off of this guy, but
he said beer money.
Yeah, back at home base, Jimmy's like, that's just beer money. So he seems a little despondent about it, but there we go. There's the cold open.
That was pretty cool. So, question in the Q&A from Sean Schick, person that's always in running for the nemesis of the state title, Jeans. You might want to be aware. He's always he's a regular contender.
Good luck. Good luck taking. Yeah, well, he can be in a state. He's just not going to make it to the level I have.
Yeah, he's pretty strong. but Sean was wondering, when did calling someone a butthole fall out of favor? It's such a gem. I don't know if it's fallen out of favor.
We just use stronger language these days.
Yes, we do. I did like my problem is I'm sitting here talking to two buttholes, so that was a good one too.
Yeah.
It was good, and then just also checking Gene's math on the show. So apparently we learned what possession of something is as a percent of the law. Did you manage to catch what Steve's math was on that?
It's like 4/10 or something?
4/10, which some of us might call a fifth. So I'm not sure. Obviously, Steve's not the brains of the operation, though. Cool. Alrighty. And then, so your quote is still in play, Jeans.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we will move ahead into. We'll go ahead and move into Act 1 then. And we've got Jimmy with our favorite people, the Kettlemans. So awesome. And as we last left them, the large bag of money had opened up, revealing a large amount of money. And so now the conversation is going on around that. And Jimmy starts doing his Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman thing, which is like talking about Nacho, and he's a working guy, a father, I think. And he got in trouble. In fact, several someones may have gotten in trouble. And they start trying to work things out. Close quote of the night for me was, as they say in the software world, this isn't a bug, it's a feature, which is pretty cool. But the Kettlemans he begins to talk about this being leverage, and if they turned it back in, that was going to help them. But Betsy has no intentions of returning that money.
No.
Because it's all about fairness.
Yep.
And then there's a fairly convoluted storyline around he worked a lot of overtime, and even though he was salary, he should have gotten that overtime, and so he deserved all this money.
Right.
I'm a little skeptical, but
It's a lot of money.
see, yeah, it's a lot of overtime. I'm not sure what his rate was, but we do that.
It'd have to be astronomical to justify $1.5 million.
Yeah, over I think about a 5-year period. So he was putting in the hours, and and then Betsy starts to kind of try and provide other examples that to justify it, and kind of saying in a way it was like slavery, and I like the fact she clarified human slavery, which,
Human, as opposed to puppy slavery.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a little so that was.
Yeah.
Was
She actually says the phrase slavery used to be legal. Human slavery.
Human slavery.
Yes.
Be specific.
Yes.
But our moral compass, Jimmy, cannot take a bribe, although you can see him struggling with it significantly, but he is willing to take it as a retainer. And he's singular, he begins to draw a contrast between what they'll get from him versus what they'll get from Hamlin, and McGill. His singular focus, pick up the phone anytime or not. But Betsy, who appears to be the one who calls the shots, if I were to guess,
You think?
it looks like it. since Craig's head is constantly cocked, looking over to her for what's my next response, she indicates that Jimmy's the kind of lawyer guilty people hire, which is pretty mean.
He did actually genuinely look hurt by that.
He did. I mean, and this is.
Although she has a point. It is true.
Well, we don't.
But he's working so hard.
Right. Look at all the people he's defended, and yeah, they were probably all guilty.
Well, that's what happens when you're a public defender. So, anyway.
Yep. And so he, so she basically says no and reoffers the bribe. We're not clear at that point exactly what happens next, as we cut back to our good friend Mike. Saul's ready to kind of strike up a little bit of a relationship now that Mike kind of bailed him out on the last one. Mike appears a little less interested in deepening the bonds between him and Jimmy.
Mike is my favorite. I love Mike.
His delivery is, I've never seen a man so, how he can convey in his responses his complete disdain for whatever you're saying or whatever you are.
He has no passion whatsoever for anything. He's very flat. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and a person that can only speak in ironic, sarcastic phrases, which is pretty awesome.
It's impressive.
Where Saul mentioned, or Jimmy mentions at that point, you assume criminals will be smarter than they are. Mike doesn't care, and so eventually but at least Mike's letting him back in the parking thing, which is progress, because it's a little set too they had last episode. So then Jimmy is reunited with Nacho, who doesn't appear too happy, and Jimmy gives him a free at last. And
Nacho's another one of my favorites.
Nacho, he's he is, I think, scarier than Tuco, but Tuco's louder. I mean,
I think one of the things that makes Nacho so scary is the fact that his voice is so soft and quiet, and he has this very sort of interesting tone to it at all times. But it's never, I mean, the things that come out of his mouth are angry and scary, but his tone is never very angry or scary, and I think that's what makes him so disconcerting.
Right. Well, you'll see Tuco coming a mile away, but you won't see Nacho.
No.
Not at all. And this is pretty cool. So one, Jesus, it's awesome to have you on tonight. But Mel and I did the whole Breaking Bad boot camp, and we've been through all of that. Where Jeans has done a little bit, but not a whole lot. So Tuco, she doesn't have the Tuco history that Mel and I have.
I only have Tuco and his abuelita from the skateboard incident. That's all I have to draw on.
That's a pretty
but that's
good.
Enough.
Yeah, it's a pretty good introduction to Tuco, but whoa, buddy. Yeah. Tuco's bad news. Yeah.
But
He's a fun character, though.
yeah, he
Yeah.
is, and he's the
I
king.
I love how he switches from just absolute psycho to like loving grandson.
Mhm.
On just on a dime, he just turns. It's
The
hilarious.
salsa. Yeah.
Yes.
You never did get that baking soda.
Yeah, I don't. Or club soda. Yeah, and
Club
I,
soda.
yeah, and I see. I don't see having a club soda conversation with Nacho. I think that's a really short conversation. So yeah, but he is scary, but it's this nice low key intimidating, and he basically informs Jimmy, you ratted me out, and there will be consequences. And Jimmy tries to explain, no, not me. And then, but then began to defend whoever did this actually, did him a favor. And this is where my quote of the episode comes in, because he was pointing to the, he said, hey, you're easy to spot. Somebody had already pegged you, and then there was blood in your van. And
This is where my quote comes in.
Okay, go ahead. What's your quote?
He says you gave him probable cause up the wazoo.
No, I didn't pick that one.
It was mine.
There was, and again, it's that wall of words. It is Jimmy McGill. Either right before or right after that was, here's a thought, Ajax, 409.
That was my number 2 quote.
So
Ultimately, I had to go with the buttholes, though, because it was just funny.
And
Don wants to remind us, though, that the ironic part was that the Kettlemans were guilty when they told Jimmy that only guilty people hire a lawyer like him.
Yeah. Guilty of picking the wrong lawyer in our books. That's what I say.
That's right.
But, John McGivney says, we have not heard the last of Nacho, and I believe you are correct. I'm just hoping the next episode's called Jello, and I'm just hoping that's not his like dim-witted younger brother or something like that. But we'll see on that. So then we find out Saul returns to his Jimmy returns to his palatial office, and we find out he did take the bribe. And so as he downs his cucumber cooler, pulls out the calculator, and expenses out a fairly decent-sized stack of money. I ate it on the road. And so
30 grand.
Yep, 30 grand, and he got it all charged in the premium rate, and he created the corresponding receipt to cover his bribe. So already we see signs that he at least kind of knows the basic blocking and tackling of money laundering.
Yeah, I liked that phrase, elite tier pricing. I liked that.
Okay.
So that takes us into Act 2. And what could Jimmy possibly do with all of that money? Well, his first stop is the tailor. And he has a list, a very specific list of things that he wants from the tailor. And they get real happy when he starts rattling off all of these specific menswear items that he wants.
So you both can help me out here. What the heck is Tasmanian wool?
It's wool from Tasmania.
Okay, that's fair. I'll give you that.
It's
It's wool from a Tasmanian devil, man.
So how can it be 170?
It's magical.
How can it be 170 pure?
It took 170 Tasmanian devils to make that one shirt.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, I don't think that's accurate.
I don't know. I'm guessing here. I haven't knitted with Tasmanian wool, so we'll see. If I find out, I'll let you know. I'll report back.
Probably have to spin around in circles when you knit with Tasmanian
It probably
wool.
makes you very fast. So, after he finishes up at the tailor, which we do get a glimpse of him looking at some very loud-colored shirts with some very loud-colored ties, and that, of course, is giving us flashes of his Saul Goodman attire. But we'll get there eventually. Right now, he's going for a more subdued, professional look.
But that shirt-tie combo he picked out looked like solid Saul Goodman.
Yes.
That bright orange. And,
It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. So after the tailor, he is back at the spa, only this time he's a customer. And he's looking through hair swatches trying to get his hair done. And he keeps insisting on Sassafras Glow, which here's a sign of a guy that's never had his hair colored before. He thought it would wash out. The poor little Asian woman has to tell him, no, it's bleach. So he's like, screw that, they can Photoshop my hair in. Only he told him to get the curling iron out because he wanted ringlets. He wanted ringlets like Spartacus.
So I'm gonna have to give him a great big veto on that. Look horrible.
The ringlet on the top's not a look.
Well, it's a look. It is.
I was wondering how they were going to pull that off with his hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it looked to me like they had to Photoshop his entire hair.
And his teeth.
It was bad.
His teeth are super white.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That comes up. Never mind.
Yeah. So while he's having all of this done, we cut back to Hamlin, and McGill, where Kim is in her office and she's calling him and leaving him a message after she has to listen to his horrific British accent on his outgoing message, pretending that he has a secretary.
Totally believable.
He still sounds like him. He just sounds like him with a bad British accent. He's not even trying to. I mean, don't get me wrong. The whatever that was with the roll and the rubber band and
the robot sex voice.
The robot sex.
The robot sex voice, not a good thing for for answering your phone as a lawyer. But he still sounds exactly like him, just with a horrible British accent.
Yeah. Well.
That's him.
He's not Saul Goodman yet.
I had no idea that was him. I thought he had a British assistant. That was
right.
Crazy.
She was hidden in the closet. So she's leaving him a message asking him if he wants to go see a movie that weekend.
Good movie.
And I'm sorry.
A good movie. The Kurt Russell, The Thing.
Yes.
Not a bad movie.
No, excellent movie.
It's a good movie.
She is interrupted by Hamlin coming into her office, and she's trying to talk to him about the Kettleman case, and he's looking very perturbed, and finally is not interested in talking to her about the Kettlemans and asks her to take a drive with him. And she does. And they end up driving up and parking underneath a giant billboard that has Jimmy McGill on it, that has a logo that looks just like Hamlin, and McGill. He is in a suit.
Similar.
Yes. He's in a suit that looks just like Hamlin's, with hair that looks a lot like Hamlin's. So
with the logo.
yes. So Lord Vader, Mr. Hamlin, is not. He is not happy. He is not happy about this at all. And he kind of starts to question Kim on how much contact she has with him. So anyway, and I believe they called that picture of Jimmy, they called it Jamlin. If you're a Story Sync watcher, they put up a little alter ego of Jimmy's, and they called that Jamlin.
I like it.
So that evening, Jimmy is back at the spa in one of the massage chairs, soaking his feet, and Kim comes by to see him, and she partakes of the massage chair as well, and then hands him an envelope. And of course, the envelope is a cease and desist. And they argue for a bit. And another one of my favorite lines was when he's showing her his cucumber water and the massage chair, he's like, just one of the perks of salon living, which I thought was cute.
Yep.
But they argue, and finally Kim decides to leave, and she warns him that Hamlin's not going to give this up without a fight.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, some other gems during this one was, I don't want to offend the great and powerful Howard, which was a nice one. And apparently, one of the additional benefit of salon living is a deep discount on pedicures. So
mani pedis, yes, he doesn't get those free, but he does get a discount.
Deep discount.
But I also liked how the argument was the fact that he really thinks that firm is just evil, and he wants her to go someplace where she's actually important. So it wasn't just arguing over the cease and desist. It was he was sort of almost in a way going like, "What are you doing with your life there?" You know.
Yeah. Well, it kind of seemed to me, I wondered if that wasn't something where he was wanting her to come work with him because he cares about her. That's obviously wasn't going to happen. That was written all over her face. So poor Jimmy.
Tasmanian wool update.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Thanks to the power of Google and Sean Schick having nothing better to do. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Please tell me it's from Tasmanian Devils.
I'm afraid not.
Damn.
It is from Tasmania. It's actually a big industry there, but it comes from merino sheep.
Merino
Sheep.
Yeah.
So,
well, them are just regular sheep. They just happen to be in Tasmania.
Posers.
I prefer to think it's from Tasmanian Devil. I'm going to stick with that story.
Well,
but thank you, Sean, for ruining my dreams.
Way to go. See, this is why he's trouble. I'm telling you, he's trouble. So we're going to... well, and the other part, though, before we leave this scene, the other part I really liked, is they're playing it out slow, is that you know that there's some sort of relationship between Jimmy and Kim. They're at a minimum, they at least, whether it's romantic or not, they care about each other, and it's just kind of cool. And they seem to be kindred spirits on some parts, because just like the little interaction when she's trying to get the massage chair going, and he's reaching over and trying to press the buttons, and she's smacking his hand away, and these kinds.
Right.
It was just all nicely played.
There's a certain level of intimacy that they have though too, because like when he left the law firm and she was outside smoking and he took the cigarette out of her mouth.
Right.
And smoked from it, and that's something that you do only with somebody. I mean, and this is coming from a like long time, way long time ago smoker. You don't just do that with anybody. I mean, that there's a certain level of I don't know, just intimacy there. You have to be really familiar with somebody to do that, or you want herpes. It's just
Well.
So you're a list person, I know, Gene. So like way back, did you have the list of these are people who I can snatch?
No.
No. Okay, good. All right. This was Mel and I arm wrestled before the start of the show. Actually, she knew I'm a big baby, and I want to make sure I get to talk about my favorite scene. So we worked out
I know what it is.
Yeah, and so we worked it out. So she managed me well, and I now get to talk about my favorite act of the show, which is Act 3, where we have Jimmy and Darth Vader, and with the judge arguing the case, and at the end of the last scene, Jimmy seemed quite confident that he had this under control, and Kim did not, and so now we're about to find out. And so Jimmy's, I'm just a humble sole proprietor, a little man trying to do things. There are only so many fonts out there, which is a pretty powerful argument. And then we find out one of the true moments of magic for me in this show was that first Howard, rolls out. He's ticking off all the things that where the ads match. It's the same font. It's the same rectangles. It's the same shade of Hamblingo blue. Hamblindigo blue. And he keeps going on. And
it just rolled right off his tongue.
Hamblindigo blue. And so Jimmy stops and was like, what? You actually named a color? So for you coders out there, thanks to the power of StorySync, and Mel and I have encouraged everybody to use StorySync when they watch Better Call Saul. Please say the word again, Mel, because I can't.
Hamlindigo.
Hamlindigo blue. RGB values are 98, 118, 163. If you're looking to code it in hex on your webpage, that'll be 6276A3. So there's Hamlindigo blue.
That does take quite an ego, though.
Yes. And just an aside, Sean has mentioned that it was actually McGevna who destroyed my dreams of the
Oh.
wool coming from Tasmanian devils, and I should have known that because
Yeah,
he and Helena know
that's
all
true.
about sheep.
My apologies, John. It's really Sean's fault on that. But
We're gonna blame Sean.
we're going to blame Sean. But we thank you for the participation, and the irritation goes to Mr. Schick. So
Yes.
thanks for that.
So there.
Okay.
The sheep are safe.
So we're giving you the hex
Camel
code.
Indigo Blue.
Lindigo Blue. The world's a better place now that I know that exists.
It is.
The lawyers.
So wrong.
Lawyers, the judge is talking about the very, or Hamlin's talking about the very strong parallels, and Jimmy's like, I don't see it. I don't see what you're talking about here. And he tries to pitch a story. So the judge basically says, you got to get this billboard down. And so he heads out into the courtroom main hallway area, and he's on the phone pitching the story. Little guy versus a big corporation, very unsuccessfully, after call after call after call, where most of the time he doesn't appear to get too far. Then he gets a little bit desperate, and he goes, "A health risk? I don't know if it's a health risk per se, but so he's trying every angle possible."
I love it when he compliments the guy on his journalism regarding predatory ATM fees.
Yes.
He did his homework, And he's a big enough man to admit that the war is an important story too at this point in time. So eventually,
he's run out of everybody on his list, and then he sees a girl come out of an elevator.
yes, he does. Who's got a university shirt on, and he goes, "Aha!" And so then he comes out. So now he's got a crew. College crew that he does not hold in particularly high regard.
Nor should he, given their behavior.
Well, he's also paid them
right
for this.
Yeah, he paid a college crew to come out and film him.
Yes, $100, I believe they said.
And so there's this process of
for an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get the billboard in the shot, so then it's all billboard. Well, I'm part of the story too. That it's all Jimmy, and so he eventually says, "You other guy, the only other guy here." Go, he sits there, and he eventually gets them all sit up. And no offense to your minutes of experience, but
that's actually what's replaying right now on AMC. This exact scene right now.
We should stop and watch it. And so they're putzing around, they're getting going, and then Jimmy starts his impassioned plea. I'm a small, being crushed, had a dream, American dream. And all of a sudden, all of this is going on, as a backdrop. They have the billboard and the construction worker taking off because he's forced to the Jimmy McGill billboard thing. And gasp, horror of horrors, the construction worker falls off the scaffolding and is being suspended only by some sort of safety device from there, and it's like the worker dude, and he's sitting there hanging, and so I'm going to pause here, and I want to kind of come back to the earlier part of the show. So for the watch caper in the cold opening, when did each of you know that was a scam? When did you figure out that this was Jimmy's scam versus?
The guy laying on the ground. Do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Start with that one first.
The minute he opened his mouth, the minute the big guy laying on the ground started talking.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, when the whole butthole montage began.
Yeah.
That kind of gave it away.
Butthole Montage is a great band name, by the way.
Yeah. There was way too much stuff coming out of that guy's mouth for it to be anything else. If it was not important or key to the story, then he would not have said so much. The fact that he spoke so very much and in such butthole detail just sort of spoke to the fact that it was definitely a con, because there was no need for that person as a character to say very much if it wasn't important to what was happening.
So further, not that we needed further evidence that both of you are like 10 times smarter than I, more perceptive, but I was still I started to go, I wonder, but I didn't go, yeah, this is a scam, until the guy greased the pot, said, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of extra money. I'm like, oh, this is a scam. So so the reason I asked that question is now for this scene. At what point did you know this was a scam?
The minute the guy fell off the scaffolding.
Yeah, the second Jimmy took his coat off and started running towards it, yeah, totally a scam.
Okay, so I was a little later
He's
again.
a con man. What else could it be, Kelly? He's a con man.
But there's a darkness around the writers of this show, and so what I thought as he went up, so I wasn't as convinced yet. I did start to entertain scam at the same point you did, but I wasn't ready, because I said one of two things are going to happen. Either this is a scam, or when Jimmy tries to save this guy, he's going to hit his quick release and he's going to drop to his death. And I felt either one was it wasn't going to be a true heroic moment. It was either him conning people or him actually trying to do something good and failing miserably. So I thought all the way up till the very end that guy might be dropping. So,
I'm not sure that this show's going to get quite as dark as Breaking Bad, with people dying gruesomely quite yet.
Yeah, he would have fallen out of frame. We wouldn't have seen it. It would have been a reaction shot of Jimmy being, oh darn. That was unfortunate.
You just didn't want to accept that Slippin' Jimmy was backsliding into his old ways.
Yeah, wasn't too shocked though. But indeed, what we do find out is that they're like, oh, this looks dangerous, and he goes up there and he pulls the guy up, and after the guy gets settled up, there's a handshake, and it took you long enough. And again, power of story sync, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, given I pretty much demonstrate I have zero perception or capability. The gentleman who fell off was one of the many clients that Jimmy defended in the montage in Nacho the week before. One of the groups walking out, so he was a familiar face to some, of course not to me, but StorySync helped me out there. So.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him either. I figured he had to have been somebody, and then it popped up on StorySync, so don't feel bad, Kelly. I didn't recognize him.
So we get back to the Death Star, and again, Vader is unhappy as the news comes in, and he's like, "This is a stunt. This is a stunt. Don't you think it's a stunt? It'll never work." And Kim's like, "Well, you never know. People like a hero." And so Vader whisks his cape and walks down the hallway, and you see ever so slightly Kim crack a smile at the impressed with Jimmy's work.
No, you have to be impressed. I mean, he called all those news people directly, and nothing happened, and he got him there anyway. I mean, he's a smart little cookie.
Okay. He is conniving.
Yeah.
So, Mr. McGevna, and I'm not going to give Sean Schick credit for this because this is John, absolutely John, was also on Team Jeans and Mel, and apparently anybody with a brain. That the guy was way too articulate for someone who was supposed to be drop dead drunk. So yeah, you guys all got that. I missed it. And the college crew are not the only ones working for Saul. He does know how to play a little guy, and because he had to shrink the guy down. But so a couple good things from John. Myrna now, thank goodness. Myrna, I think, figured it out later than me on the first scam. She said she didn't know it was a scam until he saved him. So that was, I was right up to the close there. So that's something. Thank you, Myrna.
You're not alone.
Appreciate it. It was. But that makes it more enjoyable. It was a surprise. It was like, oh, that's cool. And then we come back, and Jimmy does his voodoo onto the phone that he always does before he checks for messages, wanting to have a count. So I guess he doesn't have an indicator light. Apparently.
It didn't look like there was anything lit up on that phone.
Yeah, but he has 7 messages. So
Woohoo!
This indeed has worked.
Giddy up.
You got Kim smiling, and Jimmy's got 7 messages. Life is good.
And Vader's angry. That's even better.
Yes. So that takes us to the final act, and it's the following morning. Jimmy drives up in, what is the name of his little car? An Esteem?
Esteem, yes.
Oh, that poor car. Anyway.
Never has a car been named
That
more
is the
correctly.
saddest car.
He drives up in his sad little yellow car outside of Chuck's house and is doing his usual routine. He picks up the paper, though. It's the first thing he does. And he's checking through the paper, and there is a big, huge article on his heroic self. And he looks at it a little bit, and he makes a little face, and then he opens up the trunk and gets out all of his supplies that he brings for Chuck. And he leaves that paper there, but brings him all the other papers that Chuck likes. So, essentially, he doesn't want Chuck to know about this. Why? Well, because Chuck has thought he was backsliding before, and this might just seal the deal. So he goes through the rest of his grounding procedures and goes into the house. He's earlier than usual, and he proceeds to tell Chuck about how he's got, I think, 3 consultations before lunch. 3!
Mm-hmm.
And he's all excited. And Chuck is asking him, well, how did this happen? And Jimmy keeps telling him that the worm has turned and, all of his hard work paid off, and basically blowing a lot of smoke. Chuck...
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, Chuck is, he kind of eventually falls for it until Jimmy leaves. And then he's looking out the window after Jimmy.
Oh, because he asked him where the newspaper was.
Yes, he did ask him about the paper, and Jimmy told him, well, it wasn't there. And maybe some kids took it or whatnot.
Yeah, because if there's one thing kids love, it's local print journalism.
Yes, that was a good line. So he's looking out the window after Jimmy, and when Jimmy's getting into his car, and then as he's pulling away, he sees the neighbors have all of their papers across the street from him. Their papers are all in their driveway. So he gets a funny look on his face, and then he disappears into his library, and you hear some crinkly, rustling noises, and out he comes with his space blanket. Chuck and his space blanket are going on a little journey, and he goes to the door, and he opens up the door, and I can't really quite find the words to describe his experience when he ventures out into the sunlight.
Harrowing?
That's a good word. It's very disorienting.
Yes.
You just have to watch it. It was a very interesting little journey. He almost gets hit by a car that honks at him. He makes it across the street. He has brought a $5 bill to exchange for the lady across the street's newspaper, and it's blowing away, and he's dizzy and freaking out because
she's watching from the window, just mortified.
We do find she's watching, but I'm guessing it's the electricity coming off of the power lines that is raining down on him, and he's just, you're not sure he's going to make it. But he finally finds a rock to hold that $5 down, and he beats it back across the street into his house. And he collapses on the couch, still wrapped up in his space blanket, opens up the paper to the article that Jimmy didn't want him to see. And then he gets a very, very sad look on his face because he knows that Jimmy lied to him. And then the last thing you see is him curling that space blanket up around his head like Linus with his blankie, and it fades to black.
Yeah, so what we've seen, and so Myrna was asking about, had space blanket questions around. So he's under that blanket again, and she wasn't sure why. And while they've yet to explicitly say it, my sense is, and again, we all know how perceptive I am, my sense is that when he starts to get worked up about Jimmy behaving badly, Jimmy going down the wrong road, whatever he's got as a problem that he's working through just massively accelerates. So anytime Jimmy is backsliding, his fear of these rays increases. So he's got to get his blanket out to protect him. That's my.
Oh, okay.
Well, they
Gene,
have.
tell me more after that dismissive noise.
Well, so far I've only seen him with the blanket twice. So, and while there have been things associated with his backsliding, it usually comes up afterwards. Like, when they were talking about the bill.
Right.
I don't know that had anything to. The space blanket had to do more with the fact that the cell phone came in the house. Because you remember he had to get the cell phone and throw it out, and then that's when he grabbed a space blanket after the cell phone. And then he really grabbed the space blanket to go outside to get the newspaper. He had no idea what was in it yet, so it just.
Well,
and it's more like those like alien abductor people that wear the tinfoil hats.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, I think, like that.
Yeah. Well, Saul, or Jimmy, has exhibited some problems with the space blanket. So we're still trying to figure out what all is going on with that. But I know that you've listened to the Insider podcast, Kelly, and they didn't want to give too much away, but they did say that whatever Chuck is supposedly suffering from is actually a real disease.
It's a real phobia.
Yes. Well, I mean, they're saying it's not really, the way they described it was as an allergy. Now, I didn't do any research to look it up, but that was actually the term that they used in the Insider podcast. And when they first made this, they didn't know it was a real thing until after they had already concocted this scenario for him. And then they found out it's actually real. So I'm not sure if it is supposed to be an actual medical disease. I have always figured it was a psychological issue. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I just thought I'd mention that. They did say it was a real something or other from the Insider podcast.
And that, the scene that's hard to describe when Chuck makes his run to get the newspaper. I mean, I loved that for a couple of reasons. I mean, the performance by the actor of it, and the crafty way they shot it, and the music, because John McGevna had tweeted out he almost thought Chuck was going to burst into flames before he made it back into the house. you really did get this sense of, you've got the dramatic shots up to the power lines, and the sun's another source, and that the door opens, there's this flood of light that just like bathes him, and this music's going on, so it's this real harrowing process to go get it, put the $5 down, find a rock, put the money, and then come back, avoid the cars, and go in there. And so when you see it depicted that way, it's violent and intimidating. And then they cut to the woman watching him with no sound, or just basically what the audio would be at that point. And it's a crazy guy running around with a blanket over his head. And so I just thought it was a real interesting thing to say, the scene we just watched, when you looked at it from the other perspective, just kind of how powerfully different it kind of felt.
I've had crazy neighbors, not quite space blanket crazy, but I've had some interesting, like, really probably should be on serious medication type neighbors. And so it was sort of weird for me to watch that, because I could picture, like, my crazy neighbor when I lived 2 towns over, doing some things in his front yard, and like that kind of noise going on, the choppy shots, they made it really uncomfortable to watch. They kept cutting the shots of him walking around to make it just like painful to watch him do this. And so it was sort of interesting, because I kept picturing my neighbor and thinking, like, what I'm seeing is what she's seeing from her window, which is just this crazy little man running around. But from his perspective, it's extremely uncomfortable, and there's a lot happening in his head while he's running around in the front yard.
Right.
Yeah. So it's great. So I really, really like this episode. Hamlin shade of blue, still possibly a favorite moment of mine.
And Lindigo.
I'll never be able to say it, but I love it. It's just awesome. And I did like we get just a little more Jimmy Kim development, just in terms of just adding a couple more layers of these characters that you kind of care about, because you're now starting to care about Kim too, and you don't want Darth Vader mad at her. You know, and we keep hating Vader more and more.
I thought she was going to be fired. That's what I thought was going to happen when he took her out of the office.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was it. Yeah, we'll have to see on that, but it's fun, and again, it's really strong performances. Again, even though I don't like Darth Vader, the actor that's playing him is knocking it out of the park. Nacho's awesome. So
not enough Nacho in this episode.
More nachos.
More Nacho.
Yeah, we definitely need more Nacho, and we're sure to see more of the Kettlemans.
Yes, indeed. It's like magic.
Yuck.
It's like
they're
slavery,
fun.
human slavery.
Human slavery.
Oh, Betsy. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the show for tonight. Jeans, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And we will be back next week to cover Jell-O. I don't think IMDb's been updated yet, so if you have any more guesses on names that end in O, and I do, as Mel mentioned, I do listen to the Insider podcast, and they did on the last for Nacho, they did kind of fess up to say all the episodes in this season will end in O. They finally said. So if you've got any guesses, you want to throw them out there on Twitter, we'll keep track of them, and the winner who gets the most right will win a fabulous yet-to-be-named prize. I got to see if I can find
something in Hamlindigo Blue.
Yeah. Mel will knit you a Hamlindigo blue sweater.
No, I won't.
No.
I won't. Really.
A scarf for a ferret in Hamlindigo blue. So if you got any guesses, and Jeans, you're still, even though you've been on the show, you're perfectly allowed to compete, because Mel and I are competing. So if you've got any ideas, we'll get it out on the blog, the list of guesses so far, and there's lots of words in and O out there, so still many available.
Bingo.
We had some great picks last week.
Yep. We're gonna give bingo to Jeans, so we'll get you your official entry. Congratulations.
Excellent.
I still think uh-oh or oh no is going to be one, but we'll see. Excellent. Well, we will be back next week. Thank you for the folks who joined us on Twitter and tweeted along, and thanks, Sean, for hitting us on the Q&A. We're not getting a lot of action on that yet, but we'll keep plugging away on it. Our first three, each of our episodes has gotten around 100 views, which is really, really cool. We appreciate you guys watching it. Please retweet it and join us again. Best part of the show is we don't care so much how many people watch, but we'd love to get more and more people interacting with us during this time right after the show, because it's fun to talk Saul. So we'll do some more of that next week. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Good night.
See you next week.